Hello, just as you're joining today. Hi, I'm Leah. Just pop in the chat box just so I can make sure that you can hear me and see me, and let me know where you're arriving from. Where are you today? And also I really want to know, what shape do you feel like you are today? Could be a triangle, could be a square. Just pop in the chat box where you're from and what shape that you feel like you are today, just so that I can see that you can hear me. Just feel free to type it in the chat box. The chat box is down the bottom. Hey, there's Karen. Octahedron, love it, Karen. Thanks for sharing. And then just make sure that when you chat with everybody, just so we can all share in the brilliance of who you are. Australia star from Nicole. Jody says she's feeling very round. Oh, that's cute. Caves Beach, feeling like a prison bev. That's a good one. Julia from Melbourne. Shape, yes, Julia, good one. So just make sure that when you're chatting, you turn the chat to everybody, because I think it defaults to all panelists instead. So hi and welcome. Just if you joined us, I just want to hear where you're from, joining us from today, and what shape that you feel like you are today, just for something a bit different. Pop it in the chat box so that we can share the joy, and make sure that your chats switch to everybody. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera now and also share the screen with you. There we go. Now, if you do have questions, we'll be going through those in a minute about how you can let me know about those. Just pop my chat up there anyway. If you have any problems with sound or anything else, then just let me know in the chat and we can look into that. I've got Davey supporting me in the back end today. Thanks, Davey. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and Davey's going to hit record and away we go. So welcome today to Intuitive Types webinar. Now, many of you had joined me through doing the quiz a couple of weeks ago, and you found out more information about these types of channels that you're receiving from all the time. So I wanted to explain a bit more about that today, and just really start to go into how you can hear and trust what your intuition is telling you. So first of all, I'm going to start with taking the time to thank you to join me, because I think it's really important for us to take the time out to really tune in to our intuition. And that sort of means calling time on everything else that goes on in our life, to really come to a place to just stop for 5 minutes, stop multitasking, stop wearing all the hats. And I really wanted to ask you to honor yourself in this time and just close down any other applications that you got open. But if you're joining us on the recording, or perhaps you're listening to this in the car, then don't close your eyes. But for everybody else, I'm going to ask you to go ahead, and if you can just close your eyes for a moment and join me just in a few deep breaths, just so that we can really arrive here together. So taking a deep breath in and then slowly releasing. And taking another deep breath in and slowly releasing. And then the third and final breath in and slowly releasing. That's fantastic. Now I want to share with you a little bit about me. So recently I was married in January to my love, my new hubby. That's our wedding down in the bottom corner that you can see on the slide at the moment. And it was a massive family occasion. Family's quite a big thing to me, and so we really wanted everybody to get together and celebrate. So people traveled near and far to come and join us on that. The other two pictures that you can see in the diagonal corners is us jumping on the edge of a volcano in Central America, because travel is a huge part of what we love to do together and how we love to experience life. And the other picture diagonally opposite that is me snorkeling with the whale sharks in Central America also. So there's a couple of other things I want to mention. One is, you'll see a picture as a triangle of my face in the bottom of the screen. In that picture, that was actually taken at a point in my life that was probably the most stressful and demanding experiences of my working career. So my career was actually in consultancy, was my last role in corporate. And it was one of the masks that I used to wear. I was in shopping centre development, and I was the lead consultant for customer experience and technology globally for a shopping centre developer. And my job was basically to turn revenue streams from nothing. So really, my last budget was about $10 million, and that made me crash and burn, basically. That was absolute burnout in my life. I was despondent, depressed, diseased, and I spent 6 months then in retreat in my apartment. And I did a course on intuition, and this was in April of last year. Did a course on intuition, and I realized that everybody has intuition. It's just that we've forgotten. We've forgotten that it's accessible to us. We've forgotten how to access it. We've forgotten how to hear it, and we've forgotten how to trust it. So really, it was a process for me about testing assumptions and really playing with this intuition for myself. And from there, it kind of joined my two worlds together, and I started mentoring in spiritual business. So really looking at how to use your intuition in business. And then from there, it's grown into how you use your intuition in your life. And it's really about empowering others with helping them to remember their inner wisdom. There's one other bit on this slide that I really want to point out to you, and that is you'll see a dog down the bottom corner. That was my dog, Zali. Now, there's a bit of a story that goes with Zali, and it is, I was in this relationship that I knew wasn't good for me, but I didn't realize just how terrible it was. It was self-destructive, and it was just absolute chaos. But the thing is that I didn't really understand when the worst point in that relationship actually was. And what actually had happened was that there was so much tension and so much unsaid conflict that Zali became really protective of me. It was like she could feel what was going on and what was being said without the words, without actions, without anything else but what she could sense and feel. But that's enough about me. I just really want to get to the point of talking about you. This is about you and your intuition. So here's what you told me about your intuition. You want to learn to listen and follow it. You feel like intuition is the gateway to the great mystery. It really is an anchoring for what it is that you want to be able to experience in your life. You want to be able to live in alignment and not second guess, and you feel like your intuition will empower you to do this. You want to trust and listen more. You want to know, how do I know what to follow? And you love working with your intuition. You're loving how different life feels with it. And the last one there you can see is you want to understand how to tune in. And so this is kind of where this is being developed from for me. It's really about coming to the point of being able to offer you information for you to be able to hear and trust more about your intuition. And at this point, I'd like to tell you that for me, I kind of feel like this is only the beginning of the journey in understanding your 5 intuitive types. And today we're going to pack in as much value as possible, but there's plenty more to come. So note down your questions as we go along, and I'm going to explain at the end what we're going to do with them together, so that we don't sort of, you might find that your questions actually get answered along the way. But I wanted to explain to you with this slide that today the part that we're actually focusing on is awareness and observation. And to me, it feels like there's four sort of focuses that you can have in developing your intuition. Awareness and observation is the first one. The next one is mindfulness, where you move from doing to being. The third one is inspiration, where it's about guidance and taking inspired action and acting as a container, as a conduit. And the fourth one is about restoration and flow. And so what I really wanted you to understand today and to sort of experience in what I'm going to take you through is this is only about observation today, only about creating some awareness about intuition. I'm not necessarily asking you to do anything with it or make it happen in any sort of way, but I really just want you to sit with it and be with it for a while to give you some understanding about how it is that it's coming to you. So we're going to take it right back to the beginning. Everybody talks about this energy thing, and I really wanted to explain that a little bit more to you today. And what I wanted to start with was, it's really about energy is information that vibrates. Science has proven that this information is data, and it tells the atom its place and its job. So what's actually happening is the atoms and molecules are attracting and repelling based on vibration. Just pop in the chat if that doesn't make sense to you, and I'll see if I can reword it. But bear with me, because there is definitely a juicy endpoint to what I'm discussing with you today. So if energy is information, energy can be made up of two components, the physical and the subtle. The physical is mass, it's matter, it's form, it's the seen, it's dense, it's compressed, and it's visible. The subtle, on the other hand, is abstract and concept. It's formless, it's the unseen, it's opened and expanded, it's invisible. But this does not mean that it doesn't exist. As I said, this doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? Here is an example of some subtle energy. And what happens is, you can see in the series of shots that I've taken, that with the sun going down, with the light going down, the light energy going down, what you're actually witnessing and observing is changing. But really, those clouds are still there. These photos were taken within a 10-minute time frame. And you can see the subtle differences as the light, one energy form, is differentiating itself from another energy form. So what happens then with this vibration? Well, the vibration is produced in the form of frequency and amplitude, and it oscillates to generate more energy. So oscillations carry information, and remembering, energy is information, that can be stored or applied. The information and vibrating oscillations can also change, though, depending on the nature of a particular interaction. So all of a sudden, that energy can shift depending on its environment, its context, what it's also being associated with. So that's how you can see that in the unseen here from these pictures, what you're actually experiencing may not necessarily change from a vibrational perspective, but it changes dramatically from a form and physical perspective. So this brings me then to energetic states. We've got two states when it comes to energy, potential and kinetic. Now, kinetic meaning movement. It's about the cells in the body being receivers of this movement of energy. And what I really want to come to with this, to talk to you about today, is that it's actually about observational and scientists, the way science used to measure energy. Once upon a time, things like X-rays, MRI, electrocardiograms, these were all very seen as very esoteric diagnoses. And the reason for that is that they needed to scientifically measure and prove what it was that wasn't being seen. So in the same way, X-ray, MRI, it's all energy. And it's energy that's used to diagnose medicine. So when we start to talk about observational, what we want to look at is the cause and effect, so we can get some verification. This is evidence for the mind to believe that it's a possibility even. So we can actually train our brain to see the function and the frequency of vibration. So all of a sudden, our mind, which is the element that stops us from being able to access our intuition, we're able to retrain that element, and we're then able to open ourselves up to receive our intuition. Just pop in the box for me to see if this is making sense to you, to see if this is clear. If it's not, please let me know. So I wanted to take a moment to do a little group practice. And it's about vibrational release. So if you just close down your eyes for a moment, and what I want you to do is come to a place where you have trusted your intuition before. Think of a place where you have trusted that nudge. It might have been for you to get out of a relationship. It might have been for you to turn left here. Hey, there's a park right there in front of Rockstar parking out the front. Tune into that place of what it feels like for you to have listened to your intuition. Now, if there was a picture, a sound, a movie playing, that might have come to you in a specific state. And you can feel free to open your eyes again. And just pop in the box if you feel like sharing what kind of picture or sound or moment that you had playing for yourself there. It'd be great to hear some of those as shares. So what we've just done then is to create an imprint. It's an energetic imprint. Now these imprints are what we give and receive. This is what's coming through these intuitive channels. So all of a sudden, these thoughts, these flashes, that's excellent, Karen. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Mine was knowing and energy. Fantastic. So these imprints can chain energy. They form the memory. And these memories are being stored in the body, in these cells. Because again, if we remember, the cells are made up of molecules and atoms, and those are changing and repelling and attracting based on vibration and that oscillation. So if we go down to then, let's think about the observation of subtle anatomy. How it was originally was that our ancestors questioned what was going on. They then measured what was going on. And they created systems like Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine and the chakra system and shamanic practices to honor what it was that they found in their observations. And then all of a sudden we enter a period of time where science becomes measurable specific. So these measures that science has taken came from the fact that science wanted to question what it was that all this energy and medicine and these systems that our ancestors had developed. They wanted to understand more about what they are, and they wanted to be able to replicate them and scale them. So science measured these, but they measured them in a very specific way. So now it's come to the point where we're back around to the end of that revolution in that cycle. And we're now questioning, just as our ancestors did, what is it that science measured? And what is it that our ancestors measured? So what we're now doing is we're talking about an evolution in the observation of subtle anatomy. Is this making sense? Just pop in the chat for me if it isn't. So this is where we get to the 5 intuitive types. Because this evolution is about the observation as a whole person approach. And in feeling the subtle anatomy, these channels assist with receiving and discerning translating and applying the information and the data to our human body system, right? So these systems are all the bodily systems. So it's respiratory, cardiovascular, muscular, excretal, lymphatic, and the list goes on. So these systems are being conditioned by the information that we're receiving in this subtle anatomy. And this subtle anatomy can be broken down in 5 intuitive types. These intuitive types, as you've probably found out by now if you've done the quiz, are physical, emotional, mental, psychological, and spiritual. And it's these 5 types that I want to share with you more about today. So if you think of these types as being channels into the body, they're like transducers. They receive a whole bunch of information, and then it's up to you to receive and discern what it is that you're receiving, translate it, and then apply it to take some inspired action. This is the process that goes on consciously and unconsciously every day with this subtle body. So, just to touch on your scores in your quiz, I want to point out to you that there's no real difference between a high and a low score. What this is actually about is awareness about how open that you are. It's how open that you are to receiving in these channels, right? And that allows you to create even more awareness to be able to get really specific on how it is that channel receives and gives information. It's not about control, but it's about being able to work with it and be with it in a way that can really open you up to unlimited possibility. And the big thing is with the high score, it's about you may be receiving a lot, but you've got no awareness of it actually. And that actually can cause not damage, but disease, definitely. It can cause dysfunction. It can cause unbalance in the physical body system. Because as I mentioned before, as those 5 intuitive types receive, they flow directly into the physical anatomy of the body. And then the other thing is, if you found that one is less open, then you can actually concentrate on it a little more and bring some awareness to it to start to open it, which means that you'll start to have a secondary or additional channels to be able to check the data and information that's coming to you, creating more trust, creating a better ability to be able to hear and receive what's going on. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the quiz is that the percentages, in any of them, your percentages are only relevant to you. They've got nothing to do with the next person who took the quiz, or your best mate who took it, or your client who took it. It's actually only relevant to you. So feel absolutely free in knowing that there's no comparison, there's nothing to see, do, or change. It really is just relevant for you. So now, going ahead, I want you to really concentrate on the one that is relevant to you, right? Because we're going to get into a lot of information coming up. And I really just want you to focus on the one that's most relevant for you for this point. If you have a pen and paper, you're free to take notes. You're free to explore this in any way that you wish. And that's why it's also important for me to send out the recording to you so that you can come back and revisit the other intuitive types and learn more about those also. But for the state of the mind at the moment, I'd really like to ask you to only focus on one type. And then if you feel like you can be expanded enough into focusing on a second additional type, then you are, of course, welcome to do that. But in order for me to have us both in this state and in this conversation, I'd really just like to encourage you to focus on one. So first up, we have the physical. Now, here's what the physical's about. A physical intuitive strength will actually use the words as I feel to describe things. And when they talk I feel, what they're actually describing is about the physical sensation in the body, because this physical intuitive type is directly connected to the body. It's about receiving through kinesthetic means and giving through kinesthetic means. It's the preferred mean. It's about using the senses. And in particular, it's about using touch, taste, smell. And so with these senses, it really helps to heighten in receiving through these particular channels. Now, the way that a physical loves to receive love is through touch, physical touch. It's hugs, it's massages, quick little rubs on the shoulder. It's a quick touch of the hand as they bypass somebody. And the big thing that really helps a physical intuitive come back into themselves, into their own self place of trust, is a little body chat or a bit of movement. And in movement, it could be exercise, dance, sex, anything that gets that body moving. And with the body chat, it's sort of like checking in with maybe the muscles, maybe the nervous system. If you feel yourself getting really anxious all of a sudden through the nervous system because you know you've just run red light or something's just run out in front of you, taking the deep breath and slowing your nervous system down really helps to calm a physical. As does anything that's a physical healing. So massage in particular is a great one to help a physical. So moving on then to emotional, and emotional is part of the second body category. And emotional, again, use the word I feel, but really the language of emotional when it comes to saying I feel is actually more about emotively. So differentiating, it's really important to understand the difference between feeling kinesthetically in the body and feeling emotionally, because once we can understand to learn to feel emotionally, then we can learn to differentiate again what's mine and what's somebody else's. Because if we're receiving through all these channels constantly, then of course we're receiving other people's energy. Of course it's attracting and repelling depending on what our own internal conditioning and environment is experiencing. So this feeling, this emotive feeling, is really important. Now the expression and how emotional intuitives love to really help themselves, what does really help an emotional intuitive is through expression. Now, quite often that could be verbal through a chat, or there's a lot of emotional intuitives who actually shut down that emotional channel, because particularly with vulnerability. And instead they'll choose to channel that expression through art. And when I say art, it could be anything that invokes the right side of the brain. It's the freedom of creation. It's not necessarily putting pen to paper and doing a drawing. It is the free expression of the emotions through any means. Also, a break from the norm really helps emotional intuitives. So a quick little out of city getaway into nature, perfect for an emotional intuitive. Just switching up the normal routine really helps to break the stagnancy of what an emotional intuitive feels. And the way that they receive this is through emotive vibration. So again, when we were talking about receiving through the subtle energy body, the subtle anatomy, that emotive vibration, all emotions carry a particular vibration. And it's often perceived that the ones that are, let's say, more positive emotions carry a higher frequency. So this is where we start to get back into that frequency and vibration and understand that the words that we're using affect the state that we are being and how the two interrelate. So if you're in a conversation with somebody and they're talking about a really sad story, you can feel that sadness. You can feel about, you're very invested in what they're saying. Or perhaps if you have got enough of your own stuff going on, you'll block it and you'll block out what they're saying and you'll block what they're feeling. But a lot of the times emotional intuitives are very empathic, and empathic is simply having empathy. And having empathy for somebody means that you're open even more so to receiving what the other person is feeling. So it then becomes this exchange of energies where if you're not aware to what's going on, if you don't have awareness about how it is that you're being in that conversation with somebody, you can then, it's like packing their bags, right? You're gone, okay, dump all your stuff on me, and then you collect all the bags and off you go. You've taken all their stuff, all their energy, packed it in your backpack, and you're now carrying it around with you. So it's really important then to be able to understand that if this is a receiving and a giving point for you. The thing that emotional intuitives love is words of affirmation. They love I love yous. Even though they can't necessarily express it themselves, they love to receive it in hearing. They love to receive it in cards. They love to receive it as words generally wherever. And the quiet whispers in the morning, the kiss and I love yous before you go off to work. It's very reassuring for emotional intuitives. Or even words of affirmation like, you're doing a great job, or I'm so proud of you. It can be even as positive as in a coaching situation or a client situation. You've done so well. Great job. Keep it up. You're really doing amazing. These words of affirmation and positivity really, really do affect an emotional intuitive. So then we're going to move on to mental. And with mental, they'll often use the word I think. Now, mental is the first element of the mind category. When a mental says I think, they're really getting into the crux of something that they have evidence and data about. Something in their mind has allowed them to come to a position where they've collected enough data to actually form an opinion on it and say, I think. And this is generally through experience, or it can also be through the things that really help a mental intuitive to gather information and gather data is by reading and studying. And anything that's written, so anything that has sequence, data, good, chunky, solid left brain stuff, they just love it. The bits that really help soothe the mental is outcome or tactical based hobbies. So this can be anything like craft, cooking, a sailing race, a marathon, anything that's tactical process, method, sequence, order, known data-driven outcome. Even reading, because there's a start to finish, or watching a movie, because there's always a plot, there's always a storyline, there's always something to follow. They love to understand and have the pattern for how something works. The way a mental really appreciates love is in receiving gifts. But this is not just monetary gifts. This is also, materialistic gifts, but it's the considered thought that is actually appreciated when they receive gifts. It's the considered thought. It's that somebody's thought of enough of them. So say if I was out at the shops and my husband is a mental intuitive and I see a little trinket or a little chocolate love heart or something just small and sweet. If I bring that home for him as a mental intuitive, that's him receiving this gift. And that means the world to him that I've thought of him. So then we're going to move on to psychological. Now, psychological they'll use the language of "I believe." And this belief is generally created from gathering evidence. Now, what psychological is actually about, it's about the behavioral motivation for us to do something. And quite often, well, almost always, I never see this one included when people teach about the bodies and the subtle anatomy, because I think it's something that's kind of evolved over time and it's actually gotten more prevalent. And you can see how much it's become more in our awareness with the development of tools like NET, NLP, EFT. Psychological is something that we're really trying to digest as a collective and find ways to be able to break down and access the subconscious in the psychological. So besides those tools I mentioned, the other things that really help a psychological intuitive is breath, because that brings you to the power of that moment, being right there, present. Having an alternate focus. So this is kind of like where, in preparing for my webinar, I really also wanted to go away. And so also planning for me going away was giving me an alternate focus. It gave my mind a break from the rigmarole of launch and the rigmarole of what it was that I had to ensure, well, what it was that I felt that I needed to do in order to achieve my end goal of making this a success for myself. And it's almost like, yeah, being in that, breaking away from having the alternate focus creates even more awareness then. And generating that awareness around having the alternate focus and generating the awareness around flags of behavioral action. So if there's something that you're really not liking about yourself, like it's a reaction to how your mother-in-law is, or a reaction to something that your sister did, or how your dad was, or maybe it's a competitor, you know, generating that awareness around clocking these things as they come up allows us, even if we don't deal with it right then, having that awareness, simply by holding the awareness, is enough to create the shift. The next step then, of course, is creating that shift in a more actionable way and removing the energetic imprint that has come up in that shift. But simply for the process of what we're talking about today, it's just holding that in your awareness. The bits that a psychological intuitive will receive by is visual patterns, familiarity, auditory. So hearing and active listening. Podcasts are really relevant for this, or anything that is like radio, stuff that's right in your ears is very, very effective for psychological. Listening in general, and evidence, because it's all about gathering evidence with psychological. It's like, this happened when I was a child, so therefore that same emotional circumstances come up again, which proves that I need to react this way, or I need to feel this way. And these are neurologically hardwired into the brain. So every time that path is trodden, that neurological path lights up. So all of a sudden, psychological in particular, if you can't create awareness around this, then to me it feels like you're missing a lot of the pertinent points that at the moment is coming up for us to be able to have a greater understanding and awareness about. And the big one for psychological in terms of how they receive love is through acts of service. This can be as small as a cup of tea or somebody making dinner, but it's really about people proving outside of the behavioral change that you're used to. So this is why if you date somebody new and they're all doting and they open doors for you and they make you dinner and they cook you nice things, these acts of service are actually gathering evidence about this person. They're helping you to understand more about this person. That's the way you're receiving this. And that then turns into ways for you to be able to make your decisions, and in turn, how you generate your own behavior or actions. So then moving on to spiritual. Spiritual language is really about I feel again. But what we're actually talking about when we say I feel this time is I sense. It's about something that's innate. And getting back to the point of it being formless, it's about something existing that we can't quite put our finger on. The things that really help a spiritual intuitive is, again, expression. And this expression is really through being able to really be themselves. It's dropping all the masks. It's being able to have that connection. Touch really helps the spiritual. Touch really helps to create a moment of presence with a spiritual intuitive. Being with a like-minded peer group. For them, this is about connection. It's about trust. It's about validation. They feel seen and heard in what they're experiencing. And they can also share what they're experiencing. There's no pretense, there's no masks, there's no confusion. They can share exactly what it is that they're experiencing without holding anything back. Sound is really important to a spiritual intuitive. And sound can be song, it can be singing, it can be toning, harmonies. It's all about the vibration with sound. Breath is really important to help calm a spiritual intuitive, because breath brings presence. It brings you to this moment, brings you to right now. If you breathe really deep into your belly, and if you want to take a deep breath and do it with me, and release, you can feel all that system inside of you working. That body system is working. So the breath really helps to ground in a spiritual intuitive. Self-focus also really helps a spiritual intuitive. And I kind of see this is why people at the moment are really experiencing this surge of self-love or self-care, and seeing the importance of these things for themselves. Because we as a collective, as a society, we're growing in our spiritual intuitive awareness, right? Once upon a time, this was probably reserved, or we thought it was, for people who were psychics, people outside of ourselves who could tell us what was going on with inside ourselves, what was going on with ourself. And now that shift has moved so that this intuitive aspect, this subtle anatomy, is far more accessible. It's far more accessible. And from that place then, this self-focus and this really nurturing and taking care of self, self-love, self-care is becoming far more relevant and important. And then how they generally will receive is through that sixth sense vibration, as I said. It's through the subtle energies that are already present. So you remember back in the beginning when I was talking about my dog Zali, this is what she was sensing. This is how it works. And animals especially are big for it. If you've ever been with an animal that maybe gets a bit frightened of a thunderstorm, this is what they're picking up on. It's also very big for spiritual intuitives to receive orally, so through the ear, and that actually is in a process that I describe as intuitive listening. And this process is really about hearing beyond what's being said. There's actually, you know, words do matter. They matter because the word is expressed with a particular concept in mind. You're painting a picture when you're speaking to somebody, and you're painting that picture in order to communicate and get your point across. And those orally then, to hear those words, intuitive listening goes beyond just the sound of the word. It goes beyond the language that's being used. it's almost like being in a foreign country, not speaking a word of the language, like when I was in India, didn't speak a word, yet could very much understand the grandmother that I was staying with. And it's both through, you know, of course, the actions that she was doing, but there were words in there that there is no action for, but I still felt exactly what she was talking about. And this is quite often what I tune into when I work with clients, and also what I ask clients to tune into with me, because it goes beyond what I'm saying and it's connective through the vibration of what I'm actually talking about. And if you're in a state to be open and receive this, then you can feel what I'm talking about. You can feel the resonance of that vibration. Two other great things that help a spiritual intuitive to receive is color and also sight. So if you actually, sight is a big one, because if you were to close your eyes like we did earlier and picture that moment where you actually felt like you were winning at intuition, something went really right for you, you followed it, it all worked out the way you wanted it to. That sight is actually an internal sight. And that's really what we want to tune into when we want to receive through the spiritual channel. And they're snippets of things. And those snippets, actually, the brain, the cerebral mind, because it's trying to keep you safe, will try to tell you that these things aren't real. Or it might tell you that this is your imagination. The thing I found most is, for me, differentiating between fear and intuition was that my intuition would never speak nastily to me. It would never project something that was making me feel bad and making me be in a place of terror. It's always been something that I've then gone on to test in small little increments. And that's how I'd ask you to approach this, because really it's about testing what those assumptions are. So I just ask you to close your eyes for a minute more. And what I want you to do this time is taking a deep breath in, rubbing your palms of your hands together, and slowly breathing out. And I want you to do this 3 times if you would. Now I want you to bring back that picture or symbol or sound, the visualization that you had earlier on. Bring that back into your body. Bring what it felt like to really be winning at this intuition thing. And I want you to hold that in the middle of your body and see if you can create an expansion. Imagine it running around your body like liquid gold, just dribbling into all the bits, down to your toes, all the way out to your fingertips, all the way up through the top of your head. This is a very simple way to experience this expansion of your intuition. Breathe into that one more time and really feel like that's flowing absolutely everywhere in your body. And now, rubbing your hands together one more time and placing the palms over your face, feeling the energetic, kinetic heat that's coming from your hands. And then slowly open your eyes. So the big thing about today is that I want to share with you that understanding your 5 types allows you to be a whole being. This is allowing you to be the biggest, best, most awesome expression of yourself in this life. It allows you to really understand for yourself what opportunities are coming your way. How many doors have you got open? What is it that you can see through the doors? The opportunities are only limited to what you can perceive. And then in discussing this with others, through discernment, you really can understand what is for you and what isn't for you. It's up for you to discern. When you check in with your intuition, you run it through your own filter and you're like, yep, that's for me, or nah, not for me right now. And it really is as simple as that. So understanding where that information is coming from, understanding what it is that you're receiving, how it looks like. This is the observation of you. This is your awareness. And that's all that I ask you to do have a crack at from after this webinar. So in summary, yeah, I'll get to the summary in just a moment. I just want to come back to this slide. Yeah, that's fab, girls. I can see in the chat, it really, really comes through strongly for you in that distinction. That's fantastic. So there's a couple of ways then, as I mentioned before, this is only really the tip of the iceberg for exploring these intuitive types in particular. And as you know, the ongoing 4 focus areas that you can actually work into with intuition. And I tend to offer these as both individual and peer group support. The intuitive type is tuning in your masterclass, and that's kind of the next thing that follows on from this. So that's where we'll go deeper into, Davey's just popped up the link for us there, and that's where we'll go deeper into understanding these intuitive types in a more closer detail and really start getting into how they affect the physical body and the system. It's what's going on with us. We'll also look at a little bit more of the strengths and look at what the purpose, because each intuitive type has a particular purpose to resolve for itself or to experience for itself in this physical form. So we'll go into that a lot more in those sessions. And if you want to register for those sessions, they're $19 each, and they're going to be held over a series of two and a bit weeks, 2.5 weeks. And they will also be available for recording to listen back to as well. And the second part that I offer is a group peer support program. And the Unicorn Leadership League is a fantastic group of peers coming together to explore their intuition more for themselves. That's really what it's about. It's about coming together with people like-minded, like you, who really want to know a little bit more about this stuff. We explore topics together, we have check-ins together, and yeah, go unicorns, love a unicorn life. So if you're interested in that, Davey's just popped up the link there, and I can send you a little bit more information. There is actually a group that's just about to get underway, and that's the Platinum group. And in the Platinum group, we actually go for a more practitioner approach. But in the Silver Peer Support group, which is the group I'm offering today, it really is about your own self-practice and really coming to terms with what that is first, before then you can dive into the client practice. So I wanted to leave you with today that every moment is actually an inspiration. Every moment you're receiving this energy and receiving this energy through the subtle anatomy. And it's really about how you feel like you want to translate it and what it means to you in that regard. So energy is the information that vibrates. We all have it. We all have access to it, just like intuition. It's already there. You just need to have awareness around it so you can remember how it is that works for you the best. Now, I actually haven't done my random number generator for the winners, but I do want to thank you all for being live on this call. And what I'll do is I'll send out a little recording link with me picking the winners, both for the share, comment competition, and also the Sharing is Caring competition, and also for being live on the call today. I've got the list straight after the webinar. I will get right onto that, and I'll be happy to have both the chat and a chai session for the winner of one, and a 90-minute chai and a plan session for the winner of the other. And the last bit that I wanted to invite you to do was understand where is next for your direction. So from today's webinar, I really want you to just pop down. You're welcome to share it in the box, or You're welcome to just keep it to yourself. That's fine too. But I'd really like you to commit to one of the bodies for yourself, like one of the intuitive channels, one of the types. Commit to gaining some awareness around it in the next week. And what I'd ask you to do is if you have any questions, and Dave is just going to pop up my email address. If you've got any questions in the next week, please send me through an email about it, because I'd really like to hear from you. And that's why I'm not going to take public questions today, because I do find that it's very specific, it's very individual, and sometimes this can be very personal as well. So yeah, oh, thank you, Nicole. That's brilliant. She's written, when she did the questionnaire, she was mainly physical and she thought no, but now she totally agrees. I'm glad that this has given you a bit more insight into it, Nicole, and I really do appreciate and thank you all for being on the call with me today. It's been my absolute pleasure to take you through this work and to really help you to understand a little bit more about the intuitive types. And I do ask you and invite you to, shoot me an email if you've got questions in the next week, or otherwise do feel free to listen back to the recording. I'd really love to hear your feedback as well if you did find this interesting. And I see some great stuff in the comments at the moment. Laura just has asked a brief question about what if she scored the same on both. I just will answer that one because it is pertinent to what I said earlier, in that it's not really about the percentage. It's not really about necessarily a predominant, but I want you to sort of understand that generally the predominant is the one that you've got open the most. And so if you've got two the same, Laura, then those two are probably open the most. And it doesn't matter even if you've got three the same. It's just more about understanding how open you are with those channels, therefore how much can be flooding in through those channels, and therefore how much you can probably gain an awareness around understanding what's coming through them to be able to monitor it and then either discern for yourself about the information that's coming through, or really just focus on letting it go even. But having that awareness and imagination, and understanding around those channels and what you're receiving in them, even if they're the same, doesn't really matter. It's more about you understanding for yourself where they sit and really creating some awareness around it. Anyway, I think that's the end for today. I'm just going to stay on for a couple more minutes just to close it out properly. But thank you so much for joining me, and I really do appreciate your time. And I'd love you to try out using your subtle body in this next week and to get back to me and let me know what you thought. Thanks very much. See you later.